Let's welcome Rachel Kutcher to share this one.
Good morning. It's a blessing to be able to do this. When I was thinking about what do I share, it was very hard to sift it down to something cohesive because we experienced so many things when we were in India. I want to start with talking to you about why did I go to India? Why did I make this decision to go all the way across the world? It was not something that I had ever planned to do in my life. I have been supporting this ministry for several years. I was giving money from time to time as I could to help the orphanage and the work there, the different kinds of work there. And I was a little frustrated because I have a limited income, and I heard a lot about the needs, and so I wanted to be able to share with other people so that, we could all get together and help. And I heard a lot of stories from Charlie and Heidi when they went to India about India, but what happens when you get into a conversation with somebody is they start to ask you questions. And the questions came, and I knew some things, but I didn't know answers. And if it was somebody in this congregation, I could just tell them, go talk to Charlie or Heidi, or Tim. But a lot of times it was somebody at work or somebody at the school I work at, and I just didn't have that luxury. So it began to be on my heart that I had to go and see for myself. And yeah. So, and by God's grace, I was able to do that, and by the help from a lot of you, thank you very much, and thank you for allowing God to work in your hearts. But missionaries do not only go to observe. I wasn't able to go there and just look and see, but missionaries also do. So I want to talk to you about the things that we did in India. Not everything, but one of the things that we did, most of our time was spent on either traveling to see churches and then go minister in those churches. And I want to give you a little background of what that looked like. We went to, I would say, about 15 or 16 churches during the time we were there. And so we were very busy. We travel, sometimes we would go twice in one day, and sometimes we would go pretty far, and we had up to 3 to 4 hours travel if it was far away, one way, and then back. So we were very busy. They would come, and they were very gracious. They would come and they would welcome us with garlands of flowers many times. And sometimes they would even take flower petals and throw them over us like we were going to a wedding or something like that. They would serve us their wonderful coffee, which is a spiced coffee with warmed buffalo milk in it, and it is absolutely delicious. When we got there, the services began with a rousing time of praise and worship, and it was in Telugu, so we didn't understand what they were singing, but we could feel what they were singing. We knew who they were singing to. And then after that, they would pray and introduce us. And Heidi and I would go first, sometimes me, sometimes Heidi. And we would share our testimonies of what God has done in our life and a little bit from the Bible that fit in with it. And then Charlie would share the gospel and maybe a bit of his testimony. And then we would close out, and we would pray for people. There would be lines And these weren't large churches, but just about everybody wanted to be prayed for. And Heidi would have a line of people, and I would have a line of people, and Charlie would have a line of people. And most of these people did not know any English at all, or maybe just a few words. So we really had to depend on the Lord to help us. Perhaps a pastor could, Pastor Solomon, who interpreted for us, could help us by saying this person wants, the father is absent from the home and the mother needs support, or, this person has stomach pain, which they could usually tell us that by just showing us. But we really had to depend on the Lord to teach us and show us what was needed in this person's life. And and God knows. So we would go to him in prayer. I wanted to talk a little bit about my testimony, because that's basically what I did more than anything, is I just told the testimony of my life. And when I veered off and didn't tell my testimony, the pastor said to me, "And would you tell your testimony?" So I got a clue that my testimony meant something. I felt that I was just giving something about myself, and I really didn't want myself to be on stage. But my testimony meant something to the people that were listening to me. So I want to share a very short version of my testimony with you. 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. With treatment, I was given a 50-50 chance to live. And that was devastating to me because, some people have worse scenarios, but that was hard. And I really had to cry out to God at that time because I had not been living for him. I went to a Bible fellowship. I read the Bible. I prayed. I looked on the outside pretty good, but really I was living for myself. And I knew that. And I really came to, it really came to me at that time, because you evaluate your life when you get in these near-death experiences. I wasn't really that close to death, but I could see it in the forefront. So I cried out to God and I told him, I don't feel like I have the faith to believe to be healed, but I know that you have control, like we heard in manifestations, and that you are a good God. So I ask you, God, for whatever you want. If you want me to pass, and that is the best thing, I'm willing. And I just pray that, I will be with you forever. But if you want me to live, then I will live my life for you. And 20 years later, here I am. I've been cancer-free for those 20 years. Now, there was a lot more to it, but that part of my testimony was very important to these people because many of the people I was speaking to were very poor. They didn't have the luxury of always going to the doctor for things that they had. And so the fact that God could heal was important, and any testimony they heard was a blessing to them. So that's a little bit, and we spent a lot of time out with the churches and praying for them and so forth. It was such a blessing. I don't have a lot of time to talk to you anymore about this, but I wanted to go into what can you do. First of all, pray, because there's a lot of work to be done. Every time we go to India, and I know I've only gone once, but I suspect that I will go again. That wasn't the original plan, but I think so. Pray. We find so many things. Every time we go, there are more and more things that are needed. Well, in the first village that we went to, it's a very poor village, and the pastor told us that there are very many people in that village that needed eye care, and that there was a doctor who would, if they got there were about 100 people in the village that needed exams, probably glasses, and some of them probably needed more than that. But that this doctor would, if we brought 100 people, for $1,000, he would, or $10 a person, that they could get eyeglasses and an exam. I know. That's awesome, isn't it? So there are many other things, there are many other needs, but I just wanted to bring one. I didn't want to overload you to your attention. If you have any questions about the other things, you can talk to somebody on the team, Charlie or Heidi or Tim or myself or Bill, who has been to India. And I wanted to talk about one more thing that we found when we were there, and we had a clue about beforehand. There are about 35 children in the orphanage that we sponsor, and they are not with their parents if they have parents, and many of them don't have parents. And this is not easy for them. They are very joyful and they are very well taken care of, but we want to be able to bring more children into the home, and there's really need for more presence of people there. The family that takes care of them does a very good job. But so I want to ask you to pray for people that can go for a little bit more extended period of time and just be at the orphanage. Perhaps they could bring younger children in. Right now there are only school-age children. If they had more people there. And so I want to ask you to pray, think about it, ask what God puts on your heart. Maybe you know somebody who has some time, or who has the heart to do this kind of thing. And so those are the two things I wanted to bring to your attention that you could do. You could pray, always. You can give, and maybe you can go. And so that's what I wanted to share, a little of my testimony and some of what God did in India while we were there. Thank you.